Okay, so I know not many people wanted this video, but I need to get this poison out of my system so I can move on with my life. I had a long think about how I was going to do this video. It would be easy for me to just sit here and slate the show and the season. The internet's already done that. We don't need more of that. Instead, I would like to elaborate on why I loved Game of Thrones in the first place. So, TV and film, as it stands, is a pretty oversaturated platform. It's rare to find something that isn't completely predictable. And just because something is predictable or follows a certain set of rules doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's less exciting. Now, Game of Thrones managed to completely throw expectations out of the window. It very much wasn't worried about following any set rules. It made its own rules, and not only that, but it also threw in interesting characters. They were very unapologetic about how much time they would spend into actually developing their characters before anything hugely interesting was happening narrative-wise. And it was the first show I've watched in a while where I wasn't aware that there was a certain narrative that was trying to be forced down our throats that the characters just happened to be in. Everything that was happening was very much reactionary to the characters' motives and actions. And that was exciting. That was really interesting to me. And medieval fantasy isn't exactly a genre that I absolutely love, but the writing of the show just blew it all out of the water, and I was hooked. And it's no secret that the writing has been in decline since they sort of caught up with a lot of the plots from the books. From about season 5 onwards, it is like the point that everyone noticed that the quality of the writing had gone down. But no, I love a show that is unapologetic about developing deep, interesting, morally ambiguous characters. And Game of Thrones was that. And that's what makes season 8 so difficult to watch. Because I love the characters so much, I thought what we could do for this video today is run through some of the characters from season 8, discuss where they started, and how their story ended. Buckle in. So let's start with Arya Stark. She's the fiery kid who wants to go against society's expectations, and she wants to be a knight. As atrocities start to befall her family, her motives turn from a place of honour to a place of revenge, and her journey becomes about acquiring new skills to work her way through her kill list. That's an interesting character. A child assassin character. I'm in. But no, her narrative becomes about life not necessarily being as black and white as first thought, and with great power comes great responsibility. Her ending, I'm not actually that mad at. I quite liked that she didn't kill Cersei. I think it's very in keeping with her emotional journey as a character. However, I definitely think there should have been some other kind of payoff to the Faceless Men thing, just so it seemed like it had more of a point than killing Walder Frey. Maybe if she'd used that skill in her assassination of the Night King, we'd have let it die a little bit more. But no. Although I loved the scene in episode 3 when Arya's on top of the wall fighting off all the White Walkers, and she's just fearlessly like flinging herself all around the place. She's just fending off all these White Walkers. The other male characters are like, oh. But then you realise that that's one of the final scenes where Arya does anything cool, and then for the rest of the season, her story is just her running away from things. Thanks, D&D. I do think it was so stupid that she made such a big deal of the whole sailing west of Westeros thing. It was played out like this big homage to her character, but the only preparation for that was one line that she said to Lady Crane in like season 4 or something. You know that scene. And that famous character Lady Crane. The only reason I even remember that scene is because I'd watched the film The Babadook, and I thought the acting was really good, so I googled what else she'd been in, and there was an article about her being in Game of Thrones, and then the entire episode I was there like, oh, where is she? Oh, when's she coming in? Is she coming? Oh, there she is. Oh yeah, no, she's pretty cool. Oh, she's died. Sansa Stark. The spoiled entitled little girl who expects life to hand her everything. Like Arya, she's constantly learning and growing her skill set, except where Arya focuses more on the physical attributions, Sansa's speciality is how to play the Game of Thrones. She's debatably one of my favourite characters by the end, mainly because she's one of the few characters that didn't have a drastic, unexplained change of character for the sake of the plot. I like Sansa because she really overcomes a lot of dark stuff. I really liked the line in season 7 where Sansa's like, you wouldn't have survived the things that I've survived. And Arya's like, I guess we'll never know. No, she survives a lot and she comes out stronger. She doesn't make the same mistake twice. As a Scorpio, I live for that stuff. I think she's the one character that got the ending that was right for her. After the bit in season 1 when Cersei says to Ned, when you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die. The fact that Sansa was then around Cersei a lot and quite clearly learning and adapting from her, I did think it was going to be the outcome that she would end up on a throne of sorts. I never thought she was going to be on the Iron Throne, but I very much expected her to be Queen of the North, which is cool. Liked that one, well done. I also love how ruthless she was about just throwing Bran under the bus to make sure she stayed Queen of the North. It made me chuckle. It was also after the Lords of Westeros just said that the Lords would pick the ruler, not the ruler. And then she says to Bran, now I'm Queen. And he's like, yeah, you can be Queen. Okay. This is 3 minutes after a bit where Grey Worm tells Tyrion that he can't speak because he's a prisoner. Tyrion then reels off a speech that changes the politics of Westeros forever, so cool. Jon, basic human character, very noble, echoes Ned Stark despite not actually being his biological son, which I thought was quite interesting. Starts off as the underdog bastard child, goes up to the Night's Watch, and then at the end he learns that he's actually probably the most noble of all of them, and he's from 2 powerful houses, but none of that matters because he ends up back at the Night's Watch anyway, because he killed someone that just burnt down an entire city. He's never actually a character that's really interested me. I'm a bit of a rooter for the underdog, so as soon as I know there's a main character, I instantly dislike them. I did expect more of a showdown between him and the Night King. We didn't get that. I then expected a showdown in the final war. We didn't get that either, but I guess he killed Dany, so thanks D&D. Lady Brienne of Tarth, the badass warrior who don't need no man, whose story then becomes her getting a man, who then leaves her for his skinny blonde relative. We have all been there. Her ending was fine. Her writing in the book at the end, to paint Jaime as an honourable man, was fine. Had it been me in that situation, the writing in the book would not have been painting him as an honourable man. It would have been, he is a vain, egotistical jerk who uses people, plays with their feelings, and then runs off to fuck their sister. 10 out of 10 would bone again. I do think Brienne should have died in episode 3. There weren't really any character deaths that hit me in this season. Jorah and Theon were very much expected. Varys' death seemed really rushed, and almost like the writers forgot that they'd foreshadowed that he was going to die, and then just quickly threw it at the beginning of episode 5. I'm trying to think if there were any big characters that died. There was a character that looked like Daenerys, but pretty sure it wasn't her. Definitely didn't act like her, so I guess she flew off on her dragon. The end. But no, Brienne's a decent character. I guess our ending made sense, so thanks D&D. Jaime Lannister. Started off as a prick, learnt the error of his ways, became an extremely likeable character, and then in the final few episodes, completely subverted his character, went against every bit of development we'd seen, so I guess he died a prick too. His death was so stupid in so many ways. But can we talk about how at the end of episode 5, the tunnel system was quite clearly collapsing completely, and it seemed that there was no way that they could have survived that. And then at the beginning of episode 6, when Tyrion's walking through the tunnels, still intact by the way, the whole tunnel system seems fine. There just seems to be a few piles of rubble. Like, instead of just hugging and accepting the inevitability of their death, Jaime and Cersei could have just like stepped to the right slightly and they'd have been fine. And then in the scene where Jaime's golden hand is just sticking out of the pile of rubble and Tyrion's crying over it, I was just waiting for Jaime to sneak up Ninja Arya style behind and be like, I'm fine, can't you see that the tunnels are fine? But no, Jaime isn't Arya, so I guess he doesn't get like 17 fake out deaths. Cersei Lannister. Cersei was one of my favourite characters consistently from seasons 1 through 7. Her character literally represents the entire premise of the show. She was a brilliant villain, acted really well, and season 8 gave her nothing. Although I did love the memes where it was like, respect to Lena Headey, who got paid 1 million per episode to stand on a balcony drinking wine. Also, wasn't she not drinking wine because of the baby? And then she was drinking wine. Oh, who even cares at this point? She was a great villain with a horrendous attempt at a poetic ending. Thanks, D&D. Tyrion. I don't think I have any complaints here. I think Tyrion has always been a character who will blindly follow the leadership of whoever's in charge at the time. He definitely doesn't question anything or anyone. So it checks out. And then the big one, Daenerys. So Daenerys starts off as a seemingly naive, innocent girl who is forced to learn to play situations to her advantage. She pretty much builds an army out of nothing. It's always been obvious that she was going to go Mad Queen. All you have to do is look at the army she's built. It's literally made up of the Dothraki, the pillagers and rapists, and the Unsullied, the mindless killing machines. Now, I'm no expert, but if you're gonna lead an army to slaughter a load of innocent people, that is the army that would do it. It was not subtle. And I was always excited to see her go Mad Queen. I thought they would do it better. I assumed one of two things would happen. The writers would either slowly develop it so we see her go full Mad Queen, and once she gets there there's no coming back from it. Or I assumed she'd kind of show traits similar to how they did, but you know, for a longer period of time. And then we'd see her flip. But then I always assumed, knowing Daenerys as the character that was written in the show, that she would come back down and have this huge, what have I done moment. But neither one of those things occurred. Someone really needs to tell D&D that just because something has been foreshadowed doesn't mean it's been developed. In her defense, she seems to only really flip when the bells start ringing. And I honestly have a similar reaction every time my alarm goes off every morning. I want to burn everything down too. But you know what, Dany? Rather than burning down a city, I have a tip for you. Become passive aggressive. It's great. In respect to the showrunners, I do admire that they weren't afraid to just take a giant steaming dump on anyone that liked Daenerys as a character. I know a lot of people were inspired by her as a character. As I explained earlier, I'm a rooter for the underdog, so Dany and Jon were low on my list of priorities. In terms of her death, I don't really care. By the point that they killed her, it wasn't a character we recognised. I didn't feel bad, because I didn't like that they didn't have her show any remorse at what she'd done. It just wasn't good. And lastly, the king himself, Bran the Broken. He's not so much of a character as much as he's a set piece. Such a useless character. You're gonna have an all-seeing character and you're not gonna have them do anything? Come on! There's also something about having a disabled character in the show and then not have them really do anything or be of any use that just doesn't sit right with me. It's like having a gay character that just constantly spends their time going cooey. Oh wait, we had that, it was Renly. That's all the characters I'm gonna go through for now. There are more, but I'm too grief-stricken to go through all of it right now. Instead, we're gonna quick fire some stupid things that happened. To show she'd captured the city, Dany put up a giant banner with her sigil on it because the ash-covered streets were apparently not enough to communicate that. Also, everyone in the city currently either came in with you or you've ordered to be killed, so like, who's it for? Rhaegon Targaryen meant absolutely nothing except to drive the Dragon Lady crazy. The Night King symbols meant absolutely nothing, and the scene with those bodies that then caught fire was completely pointless. The Night King and Bran link was a wafer-thin piece of shite. The Long Night was set up as a never-ending wave of destruction that froze kings in their castles, and it was over in an hour and a half. Dragonfire could blow up magical ice walls, castle walls, ships, but not a small boulder that our main character was hiding behind. Not a single character thought that putting the defenseless people in a crypt while facing an enemy with the ability to raise the dead was a stupid idea. Sansa Stark was in said crypt, and we didn't get a scene showing her interact with the dead Rickon or Headless Ned. The throne was melted by a sad dragon. Cersei and Daenerys were both set up to be bigger villains than the Night King, then pose zero threat before having anticlimactic deaths. What I don't get is they clearly didn't have enough time to set up Daenerys as an effective Mad Queen. But do you know who we have had very much take that path over the last few seasons? Pretty much every season they've ever been in. Cersei. If you don't have the time to develop Dany as a decent Mad Queen, have Cersei do it. As the bells are ringing, cut to a shot of Cersei turning to Qyburn and just saying, burn them all. And then she can just use wildfire to blow up all the cities. We know pretty much all of the heroes' forces are in the city at this stage. Dany's rested on a wall on a dragon. We know Jon's there but not too deep in. So we even know the weight of having all of this wildfire going off while our army is there. Jon's close enough to the exit. He can just run out in time. Drogon can start to fly off. His wing can get clipped by some of the wildfire exploding. And he can go down, and maybe he's injured or dead, but he'll land just outside of the city so Dany survives for the convenience of the plot of the next episode. You can still have scenes of Arya running around the city grounds. This time it's wildfire rather than dragonfire. You can have Jaime arriving at the Red Keep just in time to see it all blowing up and Cersei stood there. Cersei can be surprised but still enraged. Jaime can look at her like, oh my god, what have you done? And then Jaime can kill Cersei, and then you've got that prophecy thing about the little brother killing her. That can come true. It would also mean that he hasn't completely 180'd on his character, and it would make a lot more sense to the audience. We can then debate whether his intention was to kill her the entire time anyway. If you still want that poetic ending, he could go all Clegane Bowl and rugby tackle her off the building and they can both fall into the burning city. You can still get that poetic ending, but it then just carries a bit more of the weight of each of those characters' journeys towards their end. But no, I guess it's fine, just have all of the characters completely 180 before dying. That's good too. And I know I complained about Drogon burning the throne. I don't have an issue with the throne being burnt, kinda makes sense. I just didn't like that Drogon did it himself. I get that it's symbolic, it just comes across as another display of D&D writing things in for the sake of it. In fact, while I'm ranting about this, Dany dying almost immediately after becoming the next big villain is also stupid. In fact, forget it. Let's fix the throne, let's fix this, let's workshop it now. In an attempt to fix the throne bit, without changing any of the major plot points, you can still have her flipping, going Mad Queen, burning down the city, but instead, in that scene where she walks into the throne room, I think she should walk up to the throne, sit on the throne. It should go to like a point of view shot. You can have this silent scene of her looking out onto an ash covered throne room and you can see it really weigh in on her, the gravity of what she's just done. Have her show some regret and remorse. You can have Emilia Clarke's like stubborn eye acting thing that she does really well. Show her almost trying to convince herself that what she's done is fine, but inevitably you see it crack through. The silence of the scene is only cut when Drogon flies past like he already does in that scene, and that makes Dany turn. That forces her to look out to where he's just flown past. She walks over and looks out of this giant hole where a wall used to be. She looks down on the burning city and the silence is consuming at this point. So as you've got her looking down over the city she's just destroyed, you can really have her weighing it up. You can see her emotions choking her. She can barely breathe. She's almost having this like panic attack. As she's having that, Drogon lands behind her and she kind of almost falls down the steps because she's so weakened by like what she's done and her remorse, and she's so devastated at what she's done. She has Drogon burn the Iron Throne, and then we haven't just got Sad Dragon burning the throne. It's a choice that Daenerys has actually made. It displays to us that she's quite clearly regretting it without her actually saying anything. We almost see that decision in her mind that she isn't going to go conquer the world. She's fine. There's one of my neighbours is looking at me. It almost redeems Dany, makes her a bit more recognisable to the people that loved her to begin with. Kind of excuses the fact that you have her flip out without putting the proper groundwork in there. And then in terms of killing her off, you can do one of two things. You can still have her killed off by Jon. You can come in, do the whole "you're my queen" thing. You can hear her go, "Oh Jon, but before she can explain that she's seen the error of her ways, he offs her. As she falls, he looks up, sees the melted throne, puts two and two together and he's like, oh no, what have I done? You've got your Romeo and Juliet-ish ending. Otherwise, if you want to stick with that like artsy, we're so good at writing even though we're terrible thing, do you know what you can do? As she's lying there grief-stricken and the throne's melting, the throne could melt and cover her, have her encased by the throne she sought after all this time, this huge physical representation of being consumed by your goals. And then you've got that paralleling her whole "a crown for a king" thing that her brother has, and there you go. Art. Wow. much creativity. Either way, we as an audience would care more because we'd have seen remnants of the character that we love before they die tragically. Instead, Dani sticks with her bad decision and goes against every bit of character development we've seen over the past few years. Yay, we did a better job than D&D. Wasn't difficult. Took me 5 minutes. Completely forgot that I set this up, so I had a whole bit where I was going to be like, oh, and that shot of the keep, and then she's got the banners up. What, is that her first order of business? It didn't really add anything, and then the next shot I was just going to be like, would that have been funny? Would that have been entertaining for you? This show was stupid. By far, my favourite thing about season 8 is after Dani went full Mad Queen, I went to Primark. And Primark are so up to date with what's happening that there was a 50% discount on any Targaryen related merch. Well, thank you for letting me vent to you. I appreciate it. I know it can't have been easy to wrap up 8 seasons worth of content, but I really think the writers did an amazing job. Bye!